I'm Jennifer, 28F, and I've been married to Austin, 32M, for 3 years. Our story began 5 years ago when I was a fresh college graduate, working as a barista at a local coffee shop. Austin was a regular customer, always ordering the same thing, a double espresso, no sugar. He was charming, successful, and seemed to have his life together. I was instantly drawn to him. I grew up in a family where emotions were rarely expressed. My parents, both academics, valued intellectual pursuits over emotional connections. My sister Amelia, 25F, and I learned to keep our feelings to ourselves from a young age. This upbringing left me ill-equipped to navigate complex relationships. Austin and I started dating after a month of flirtatious exchanges over the coffee counter. He swept me off my feet with fancy dinners and surprise weekend getaways. I was so caught up in the whirlwind romance that I barely noticed the red flags. 6 months into our relationship, Austin casually mentioned he'd been married before. His ex-wife, Patricia, 30F, was 21 when they got married. They divorced after 3 years. Austin said they'd grown apart, that Patricia wanted different things in life. I didn't question it much at the time. As our relationship progressed, I noticed Austin had a pattern of dating younger women. His girlfriends before Patricia had all been significantly younger than him. It made me a little uncomfortable, but I convinced myself it didn't matter. After all, I was different, right? We got married 2 years after we started dating. It was a small ceremony, just my parents, Amelia, and a few of Austin's friends. I was a bit sad that none of my college friends could make it, but Austin insisted on keeping it intimate. Looking back, I realize he had isolated me from my support system without me even noticing. The first year of marriage was blissful. Austin was attentive and loving. We traveled, tried new restaurants, and talked about our future. But things began to change when I expressed interest in going back to school for a master's degree. Austin was surprisingly unsupportive. He said we couldn't afford it, even though he had a well-paying job, and that I should focus on being a good wife instead. I was hurt but figured he was just stressed about finances. Then I got pregnant. It wasn't planned, but we were excited. However, Austin's behavior took a drastic turn. He became controlling and critical. He monitored what I ate, commenting on my weight gain. He insisted on accompanying me to every doctor's appointment, speaking over me and making decisions without consulting me. At home, Austin would explode over the smallest things. If dinner wasn't ready when he got home, or if I folded his shirts wrong, he'd go into a rage. He called me lazy and incompetent. I started walking on eggshells, trying to anticipate his needs to avoid his anger. I tried to talk to my parents about it, but they seemed uncomfortable with the topic. They suggested I try harder to please Austin, that marriage required sacrifice. The response left me feeling even more alone and confused. My sister Amelia visited us last month. She immediately sensed something was off. One evening, while Austin was working late, Amelia confronted me about the tension in the house. I broke down and told her everything. She was horrified and urged me to leave Austin, but I was too scared and confused to consider it. The breaking point came during a family dinner last week. Austin's parents were visiting, and I spent all day preparing a special meal. Unfortunately, I overcooked the roast. When Austin took a bite, his face contorted with anger. He exploded, calling me useless and incompetent in front of everyone. His parents looked uncomfortable but said nothing. I was mortified and left the table in tears. To my shock, Austin's mother Martha, 58F, followed me to the kitchen. Instead of comforting me, she berated me for embarrassing Austin and being a bad wife. She said I needed to try harder to please him or he'd leave me like he left Patricia. Her words hit me like a ton of bricks. Austin had told me Patricia left him, not the other way around. When I confronted Austin later that night, he laughed it off and said his mother was confused. But the seed of doubt had been planted. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story of Austin's first marriage. The next day, while Austin was at work, I did something I'd never done before. I looked through his old emails. What I found made me sick. There were emails from Patricia, begging Austin to go to couples therapy, to stop belittling her, to treat her with respect. The last email was Patricia telling Austin she was leaving him because she couldn't take the emotional abuse anymore. I was reeling from this discovery when I came across emails between Austin and his friends, dated just before we met. In them, Austin talked about finding a young, naive girl he could mold into the perfect wife. He even joked about how he'd have to train her to be obedient. I felt like my whole world was crumbling around me. Everything I thought I knew about my marriage, about Austin, was a lie. I realized with horror that I had fallen into the same trap as Patricia. In a moment of desperation, I reached out to Patricia through social media. To my surprise, she responded quickly. We talked on the phone for hours. She confirmed everything I'd feared. Austin had been emotionally abusive throughout their marriage, constantly criticizing and belittling her. When she finally stood up for herself, he left her for someone younger, me. Patricia's story was eerily similar to my own experiences. She talked about how Austin would explode over small things, how he isolated her from friends and family, how he made her doubt her own perceptions. It was like listening to someone describe my life for the past year. Now, I'm 7 months pregnant and terrified. I feel trapped. I'm financially dependent on Austin, having quit my job at his insistence when we got married. My family, while well-meaning, doesn't understand the gravity of the situation. Amelia is the only one who seems to grasp how serious this is, but she lives in another state and has her own life. I'm scared for my future and my baby's future. I don't want my child to grow up thinking this is what love looks like. But I'm also terrified of being a single mother with no job and no support system. Am I overreacting? Should I try to make things work for the sake of our child? Or should I leave before things get worse? I need advice on how to handle this situation. I feel lost and alone, and I don't know where to turn. Update 1: It's been 2 weeks since my last post, and my world has been turned upside down. First, I want to thank everyone for their support and advice. Your comments opened my eyes to the severity of my situation and gave me the courage to take action. After careful consideration and many sleepless nights, I decided to leave Austin. The thought of raising my child in such a toxic environment became unbearable. I reached out to my sister Amelia, explaining everything in detail. To my surprise and relief, she immediately offered to let me stay with her. Amelia lives in a small apartment in the city, but she said she'd sleep on the couch to give me the bedroom. Her kindness brought me to tears. Planning my exit was nerve-wracking. I was constantly afraid Austin would discover my intentions. While he was at work, I slowly gathered essential documents, clothes, and some personal items. I was careful not to take too much at once, fearing Austin would notice. I also started squirreling away small amounts of cash from our grocery budget, hiding it in a tampon box. The day I left, I waited until Austin had gone to work. I called a taxi and left a note explaining that I needed space to think about our relationship and would be staying with Amelia for a while. I didn't mention my plans to leave permanently, fearing Austin's reaction if he knew the truth. The first few days at Amelia's were a whirlwind of emotions. I felt relieved to be away from Austin's constant criticism, but also guilty and scared. What if I was making a mistake? What if I couldn't make it on my own? Austin called and texted incessantly, alternating between tearful apologies and angry accusations. I didn't respond, which only fueled his anger. Amelia was my rock during this time. She listened without judgment, held me when I cried, and assured me I was doing the right thing. She even took a few days off work to help me settle in and look for a job. Her support meant everything to me. A week after I left, Austin showed up at Amelia's apartment. He was furious, demanding I come home. He said I was being selfish, that I was tearing our family apart. Amelia stood her ground and threatened to call the police if he didn't leave. It was terrifying, but seeing Amelia stand up to him gave me strength. After Austin left, Amelia insisted we install a new lock on her door, just in case. The next day, I received a surprising call from Martha, Austin's mother. Her tone was completely different from the night of the dinner. She apologized for her behavior and confessed that she had enabled Austin's abusive tendencies for years. She admitted to covering up his behavior with Patricia and expressed regret for not speaking up sooner. Martha shared some shocking details about Austin's childhood. Apparently, Austin's father had been emotionally abusive, and Martha had always made excuses for his behavior. She realized she had taught Austin that this behavior was acceptable. While I appreciated her honesty, it didn't change my decision to leave. However, it did help me understand the cycle of abuse a little better. I've been in contact with a lawyer to discuss divorce proceedings and custody arrangements. It's daunting, especially since I have no income of my own. The lawyer suggested I file for temporary spousal support to help me get back on my feet. The idea of taking money from Austin makes me uncomfortable, but I know I need to think about my baby's future. The most unexpected development came from my parents. When I finally gathered the courage to tell them about the situation, they were shocked and upset. To my surprise, they admitted they had always been distant because they didn't know how to express their emotions, not because they didn't care. My mother shared that she had grown up in a household where emotions were seen as a weakness. She had vowed to be different with her own children but realized she had unintentionally recreated the same environment. Both my parents expressed regret for not being more emotionally available and offered their full support, both emotional and financial. This open conversation felt like the beginning of healing for our family. I'm taking things one day at a time. Some days are harder than others. I miss the Austin I thought I knew, the man I fell in love with. But I have to remind myself that man never really existed. It was all an act to lure me in. I'm focusing on my health and preparing for the baby's arrival. Amelia has been helping me set up a small nursery corner in her apartment. We've been shopping at thrift stores for baby items, trying to stretch our limited budget. I'm also looking for a job, which is challenging given my advanced pregnancy. But I'm determined to rebuild my life, for myself and for my baby. I'll update again when there are more developments. Thank you all again for your support. It means more than you know. Update 2. It's been a month since my last update, and the past few weeks have been a roller coaster of emotions. The biggest news is that my baby girl, Zoe, arrived 2 weeks early. The birth was complicated due to the stress I've been under, but thanks to the amazing medical team, we're both doing well now. Austin found out about Zoe's birth through a mutual friend. I hadn't told him I was in labor because I was afraid of how he might react. He showed up at the hospital, demanding to see her. I was terrified, but the hospital staff were incredible. They enforced my wishes and kept him away. The head nurse even stationed a security guard outside my room, just in case. My lawyer served Austin with divorce papers at the hospital. It wasn't ideal timing, but we needed to move quickly to protect Zoe and me. Austin's reaction was volatile. He tore up the papers and threatened to fight me for full custody. The security guard had to escort him out of the hospital. Since then, Austin's been on a warpath. He's contesting everything in the divorce, especially custody. His lawyer sent a threatening letter, claiming I'm an unfit mother because I abandoned the family home while pregnant. They're also trying to paint me as mentally unstable, citing my hormonal state and the stress of new motherhood. It's infuriating, but my lawyer assures me we have a strong case. Patricia reached out again after hearing about Zoe's birth. She expressed her sympathy for what I'm going through and offered to testify about Austin's abusive behavior if needed. It's a generous offer, and I'm considering it carefully. Part of me is hesitant to drag her back into this mess, but her testimony could be crucial for protecting Zoe. On a brighter note, my relationship with my family has improved dramatically. My parents have been visiting regularly, helping with Zoe and offering emotional support. It's like we're finally learning how to be a family. My dad, who I've always seen as stoic and distant, broke down in tears when he held Zoe for the first time. He promised to be the grandfather he wished he'd had as a child. Amelia has been my rock through all of this. She's taken to motherhood with gusto, singing silly songs to Zoe and helping with late-night feedings. Having her support has made this challenging time so much more bearable. I've started attending a support group for single mothers and domestic abuse survivors. It's been incredibly helpful to connect with others who understand what I'm going through. Hearing their stories of survival and resilience gives me hope for the future. Financially, things are tight, but I'm managing. I've started doing some freelance writing work from home while Zoe sleeps. It's not much, but it's a start towards financial independence. My parents have also been helping out, covering some of our expenses until I can get back on my feet. There's still a long road ahead with the divorce and custody battle, but I'm taking it one day at a time. Zoe gives me strength and purpose. When I look at her, I know I made the right decision. I'm determined to create a safe, loving environment for her, free from the toxicity I experienced with Austin. I'm learning to trust my instincts and stand up for myself. It's not easy, and there are days when I doubt everything. But then I look at Zoe, and I know I have to be strong for her. She deserves a mother who is confident and self-assured, and I'm working every day to become that person. Update 3. 6 months have passed since my last update, and life has settled into a new normal. Zoe is growing fast and brings joy to every day, even the challenging ones. Her first smile, her first laugh, these moments remind me why I fought so hard for our freedom. The divorce is finally settled. Austin fought hard for joint custody, but the judge ruled in my favor. He has supervised visitation rights, which he rarely uses. It's a relief, but also sad for Zoe's sake. I hope that one day, Austin will get the help he needs and be able to have a healthy relationship with his daughter. During the proceedings, some shocking information came to light. Austin had a history of financial manipulation in his previous marriage and had been doing the same to me. He had opened credit cards in my name without my knowledge, racking up significant debt. My lawyer is helping me navigate this mess and repair my credit. It's a long process, but I'm determined to regain my financial independence. On a positive note, I've secured a full-time remote job as a content writer. It allows me to work from home and take care of Zoe. The company is understanding of my situation as a single mother, which is a huge relief. Amelia has been an incredible support, often babysitting when I need to focus on work or attend therapy sessions. My relationship with my parents continues to improve. They've become doting grandparents to Zoe, and we're slowly learning to communicate better as a family. It's not always easy, years of emotional distance don't disappear overnight. But we're making progress. My mom and I have started having weekly emotion check-ins where we practice expressing our feelings openly. It feels awkward sometimes, but it's helping us build a stronger relationship. I'm also proud to say I've started volunteering at a local women's shelter, sharing my experience to help others in similar situations. It's healing to turn my painful experience into something positive. Last week, I spoke to a young woman who reminded me so much of myself a year ago. Seeing the spark of hope in her eyes when I told her my story was incredibly powerful. Life isn't perfect. There are still days when I feel overwhelmed and scared about the future. The legal battles with Austin have left me with a mountain of debt that sometimes feels insurmountable. Co-parenting with an abusive ex, even with limited contact, is challenging. And I'm still working through the emotional scars of my marriage in therapy. But despite these challenges, I'm happier than I've been in years. I'm rediscovering who I am outside of Austin's influence. I'm learning to trust my judgment again. And most importantly, I'm providing a safe, loving home for Zoe. To anyone in a similar situation, there is hope, and you deserve better. Trust your instincts and don't be afraid to ask for help. The road isn't easy, but it's worth it. You are stronger than you know.